Fall 2024 was a season that I wasn't inherently excited for outside of Dandadan and Uzumaki. Over the past few weeks, I've gotten caught up with some of the series that are airing now, and there's certainly some hidden gems. Some shows tread on familiar territory, whereas others improve upon existing ideas. So without further ado, let's talk about the airing series of fall 2024. First up is Yakuza Fiance, a romance series centered around Yoshino and Kirishima. Yoshino is the daughter of a Yakuza leader based in Osaka, and she has become engaged through a political truce between the Osaka and Tokyo branches. This is a series chock full of dark humor and has a very polished feel when it comes to the art style. It feels more like the source material is coming to life rather than being adapted into a more bland and generalized anime adaptation. Yoshino and Kirishima's relationship, if you could call it that, is essentially Yoshino kicking Kirishima and his playboy tendencies in nuts. He is arrogant, crude, and a clear sadist as seen by his violent nature. This whirlwind romance is all about Yoshino trying to get Kirishima to fall in love with her before crushing his soul in the palm of her hand. Kirishima goes from me wanting to kill him and put him in a wood chipper to making me wish that he's in a saw trap in mere seconds. This is far and away one of the most innovative shows of the season, and I'm expecting great things from the upcoming finale. If you like romantic comedy shows, this is a must-watch from this season. Another romantic comedy airing this season is 365 Days to the Wedding. Takia and Rika are co-workers at a travel agency, yet they have never spoken to one another. That is until it is revealed that their agency is going to be sending someone to Alaska to become the new branch manager. Both of them have their reasons for not wanting to move, and they come up with a scheme to get out of moving to Alaska, faking a marriage in order to prioritize themselves in the eyes of the company. This romantic comedy focuses on their dynamic and how they're both introverted but have vastly contrasting upbringings. Takia has a large and loving family, whereas Rika has grown up rather alone, which makes her sort of distant and cold. This is a good, not a great romantic comedy that you can watch if you're looking for something fresh. Speaking of fresh, Demon Lord 2099 is all of that and more. Forget about doing a reverse isekai in modern day Japan. What about doing a sci-fi cyberpunk show mixed with fantasy elements? That is exactly what Demon Lord 2099 is, and it is a blast. Think of the devil as a part-timer and crank the animation and action to an 11. This is a great show that seemingly pushes the boundaries of the sci-fi and fantasy genre, and it has to be one of my favorite shows of the season.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
The next show, The Most Notorious Talker Runs the World's Greatest Clan, sounded off a lot of alarm bells and red flags for me. It seemed like a typical isekai or fantasy show, and I tried watching the first 5 minutes and decided to put it off, thinking it would be a simple power trip show. Which it is not. On second glance, this is the best new fantasy series of the year for me. It has unique class systems and has a very Dungeons and Dragons coded feel to it. What makes this series stick out to me is how jaded and sadistic Noel is. In the first episode, his party funds are stolen by half of his party, and it's revealed that they're gambling away the party's money. Listen, it'd be one thing to hand him off to the authorities, but he's quite literally beating them to a pulp and then selling them into slavery to recoup his assets. It is not just edge for edge's sake though, as it has a compelling story about wanting to strive towards the top and feeling like it amounts to nothing. After the season ends, this is probably one of the series that I'll focus on and analyze with a magnifying glass in a solo review video.
Hey man, this look pretty good, man. Where your clothes at?
In regards to fantasy anime, there are quite a few this season that are feeling a bit bland. Loner Life in Another World is one of these series, which is okay to have playing in the background, but it essentially follows most of your usual isekai series tropes. Haruka, our protag, has the worst skills but is seemingly the strongest due to his knowledge of the isekai genre. Let This Grieving Soul Retire is essentially the most notorious talker from Wish.com. It is as if Shadow from Eminence and Shadow had no real power and was just constantly portraying his alias as a weak nobody. The substance of the show boils down to fan service and watered down fantasy tropes, but it has a slight enjoyment factor compared to Loner Life. The fantasy shows that I cannot recommend at all though are Goodbye Dragon Life and The Healer Who Was Banished from His Party. Unlike the past two shows, there's some redeeming qualities that make it stick out from the others. Whereas these two are your run-of-the-mill fantasy series that don't even attempt to do anything noteworthy of nature. Orb, on the movements of Earth, is essentially Copernicus studying heliocentrism, but in a grounded and dramatic way. It is like Vinland Saga, but set in Poland. A lot of people have said a lot about this show already, but this is probably the most unexpected surprise of 2024, aside from Frieren. It's a solid drama show for a more older demographic. I would recommend this to those who like historical pieces. Even then, this is contending for show of the season. Uzumaki, an adaptation of Junji Ito's work of the same name, aired and completed its 4-episode run this season. It is a horror series that adapts the vignettes of the manga and tries its best to do so with a limited budget. The first episode is a treat, whereas the second episode falters a bit. Some people have labeled this the worst show of the season, and I can't seem to agree with that sentiment. It has some of the worst animation of the season at times, but the story they're trying to tell is important. For more analysis and background, I released a full review last week on the series. Another show that seems to be getting a lot of hate for no reason is a terrified teacher at Ghoul School. Our protagonist, Haruaki, is a teacher who is cowardly and leaves his public school teaching for a private one on a secluded island. The academy is a school for ghouls from all over Japan and is more in line with a similar show called Interviews with Monster Girls. I really enjoy Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun, so perhaps I'm quite biased here, but anything horror or supernatural in nature I tend to enjoy, and this is a double core show that I think deserves more of a chance. I highly recommend giving it a watch as I feel like it's just now starting to find its groove. We have two Villainess style shows this season, both with their faults and strengths, but I think that they're worth a watch. I'll Become a Villainess Who Goes Down in History focuses on our main protagonist Alicia Williams. This is a romantic comedy between Alicia and the prince that is named Duke. Yes, I know that's confusing for me too. It is very simplistic in nature, but it executes when it comes to doing all the small things right. There are time skips that regularly happen as well, and I just generally like jaded characters like Alicia, so I hold this show in good graces. If you've liked any of the Villainous shows in the past 2 years or just want an OP female protag, I'll Become a Villainess is worth your time. The other Villainous show, or romantic comedy with a female protag, is the do-over Damsel Conquers the Dragon Emperor. This follows all of those same tropes of the villain in the first life of the protag actually being the love interest, but it works well here. Jill, our protagonist, is killed in her first life and goes back 6 years in time to when she was 10 years old. This is before she gets engaged to the true villain of the story, so now she has the choice to rewrite her path. Doing so, she proposes to the Emperor, who is, wait a second, am I reading this right? 19 years old? Okay, look, I'm gonna level with you. This show may get you put on a watch list, but the story is actually solid here. It follows the tropes of a time reset story, with Jill trying to right the wrongs of the past and rewriting the course of history. If you can look past the weird age gap and go into it with a mindset of liking the story, it is quite enjoyable and I definitely recommend it. You know, I can't believe I have to say this, but try to disregard this premise as well. If My Wife Becomes an Elementary School Student is a series about Keisuke losing his wife only for her to be reincarnated. This kind of lollybait show is not usually for me, but it actually does something cool by trying to talk about love past death. Keisuke still loves his wife, even if she's quite literally in a child's body. Listen, I'm trying to rationalize this show, but honestly this makes Domestic Girlfriend seem tame. It's a romantic comedy that blurs the line between death and holding on to love when people do pass on, and I think that message is important. Even though this is definitely lollybait, it's one of the best romance shows of the season, so take that with a grain of salt. An unexpected treat from the season that seems to be going under a lot of radars is the gender-bending romantic comedy How I Attended an All-Guys Mixer. College student Tokiwa is invited to a mixer by his classmate Suo, but when he and his two friends arrive there are only 3 guys waiting for them. Listen, I know what you're thinking. It's not actually 3 guys. It's actually 3 women that are dressed in drag because they work at a drag bar. This is a super queer-coded show, but I enjoy it with a lot of the dark humor and play on typical gender roles. This was a huge shock for me as I thought this would be a bland boys love story, but it actually has a lot of charm to it. I highly recommend this to anyone who wants a queer-coded show or even just romance fans in general, as it feels like the show is the hidden gem of the season. We have 2 serviceable magical girl shows after the perverted mess that was gushing over magical girls. Acro Trip and MagiLumiere Magical Girls Incorporated are very basic but decent magical girl shows that try to capture the essence of its predecessors, and I feel like they are shows that got drowned out this season. We have a show about MAHJONG, which is MAHJONG. There is Negative Positive Angler, which is another underrated banger which talks about a terminally ill college dropout named Sunihiro. He has his debts and worries taken away after a group of fishing enthusiasts pay them off and take them under their wing. With time limited and death knocking, this is a drama and comedy show that focuses on living life to the fullest. So, fishing. This is one of the best shows of the season. It just does not seem to have the audience for it right now. I highly recommend it, and not just because of the fishing. Mecha Ude is a marvel, as it was a crowd-funded series on Kickstarter over 8 years ago. After all that time, the series is full of action that looks like Madhouse skullfucked Trigger and pulled out this. This is going to be the big breakout series of the year, and if not, it has been the best original production of the year. Blue Box is a romantic comedy with sports, and this makes Baby Steps look like absolute trash. It balances the romance and the athletics very well, and then the animation comes over to punch you in the face several times over. It honestly puts Blue Lock to shame, and I honestly am just happy that a classic romance manga such as Blue Box is being adapted to its full potential. Then there is Tying the Knot with an Amagami sister, which pulls every harem trope out of the bag in the first episode. I understand it's hard to excel past the harem trope, so I can see the appeal of the show, and for harem fans, this is just preparation for the Return of the King next season, with season 2 of the 100 Girlfriends Who Really Really Love You coming back out, which will hold us off from rioting from lack of serviceable harem anime for 1 more month. Now I'm gonna rattle off what I think about all the sequels this season in one sentence. As a reincarnation reincarnated aristocrat is back with the second season that is just delivering on all notes. Tower of God Season 2 has been pretty serviceable, and I think it's a step up from the first season. The Ranma 1.5 reboot has been one of the only reboots that I've liked in recent years. I say that, but Rurouni Kenshin's rebooted second season is also an absolute banger. Re:Zero Season 3 is here to remind me that I need to watch Season 2. Ari Fuerte Season 3 is somehow improving upon Season 2, which gives me a layer of hope. Danmachi Season 5 is continuing its streak of success and actually improving as well. SAO Gun Gale Online 2 is actually entertaining me, which is more I can say about the first season. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2 is also somehow better than Season 1. Bleach continues to be peak fiction and better than One Piece. Yeah, I said it, what are you gonna do about it? Blue Exorcist continues to remind us that it's still a thing, and Demon Lord Retry R makes me question why I like the first season anyways. Blue Lock makes me want to gouge my eyes out, and that only leaves 2 series for me to talk about, and I wonder what it could be. Dandadan came out and surpassed expectations for me. After seeing several of my favorite mangas fail to be adapted properly, I felt like I was on the precipice of another heartbreak. But I can proudly say that the animation has blown me away, and the story at its core is delivering the emotional punches it does in the manga. We're only at the beginning of peak, and I'm already counting the days for a second season coming out. That just leaves Your Miss Servant, which is going to be my hot take of the season. It's my favorite show this season. The coldness that Yuki has and the way the two bring each other up has me squealing like a giddy schoolgirl, and I'm in love with the OP as the animation style changes are fantastic. This is the one show that I'll die on the hill of this season, and I'm going to state that it needs more attention. With that being said, what are the series that you've been enjoying this season? Is there anything you think I was too keen on or anything I was too harsh about? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.